It all starts with a bunch of American soldiers, led by this guy named Benjamin. Their job was to rescue some folks, including a guy named Ali, over in Afghanistan. They busted in, took down the bad guys, and headed straight for the prison cell where Ali and the others were held. Now, one of Benjamin's buddies, Max, asked the prisoners who Ali was. One dude raised his hand and admitted he was Ali. But Ali decided he'd rather go out with a bang and had a bomb on him. Mission failed right there and then. Fast forward 2 years, and we meet this hulking fella named Jack. He's now working as a border cop between the US and Mexico. Used to be a special agent up in the capital, but now he's doing his thing down in Texas. Things sure have changed for him. Jack rolls up to the police station, and there he meets the big boss, Chief Ramona Garcia. She lays out the plan for the gang. They're going after a drug cartel run by a guy named Felix. These bad guys have been smuggling loads of heroin into the USA. Garcia gives everyone a heads up that these guys are no joke. They've got ex-mercenaries guarding them, so everyone's got to play it safe and not rush into things. Now, before heading back home, Jack decides to chill at a cafe and grab a bite. But when he walks in, folks there start giving him the side eye and poking fun at him. Well, that's because Jack's got this old school vibe going on, plus he's got a cute little white rabbit with him. One guy even starts dissing the rabbit. That really ticked Jack off, and he went on the attack. 2 other dudes jumped in, but Jack, with his killer martial arts skills, made sure they all left with some broken bones. The next day, Jack teams up with a guy named Billy. They're cruising around in a car, patrolling the area. Billy starts talking about how the drug cartels seem to always know what the police are up to, which makes him think there might be some cops leaking info to the bad guys. Jack doesn't say much, just listens. After their shift, Jack heads back to his hotel to catch some Z's. But that night, he's jolted awake by a dream about his daughter overdosing. The next day, Jack's going through some case files when Billy rushes in with news that there's a big shootout between the cops and the drug dealers at the border. Jack and Billy rush to the scene to lend a hand. When they get there, Jack figures out that the drug dealers are just trying to distract everyone. So he takes Billy to a safer spot away from the action. Jack gets to this spot they suspected was a drug smuggling route and finds a bunch of folks who crossed over from Mexico illegally. This pretty much confirmed what he thought earlier about the distraction. Among these folks, Jack manages to nab 2 guys he thinks might be carrying drugs. But when he checks one guy's clothes, he discovers the dude's got a bomb vest on him. Jack immediately calls up Garcia to bring in a bomb squad. But when they try to disarm it, the bomb goes off, taking out the guy and a few of the bomb squad officers. Turns out that bomb could be triggered remotely. It was Benjamin and Max who detonated the bomb. See, ever since their mission in Afghanistan went south, they ditched the military and joined Mexico's biggest drug cartel. They're basically henchmen and bodyguards for the big cheese of the cartel, Felix. Now the Texas police are after Felix right now. The following day, Benjamin tells Felix that their rival drug gang, led by a guy named Benito, got in touch. Benito's crew wants to talk to Felix about making a deal. So, Felix and all his guys gear up and head over to Benito's turf, packing some heat just in case. At the meeting, Benito says he wants to split up the drug-selling areas fair and square. He figures if they do that, they won't have to keep fighting over turf. Felix, though, just grins and hits a remote control that releases poison gas. Luckily, all of Felix's crew has gas masks, so they're safe. But Benito's crew isn't so lucky. They all bite the dust. Right after that, Benjamin sneaks up on Felix and chokes the life out of him. Turns out, Benjamin and Max had a plan to take over Felix's drug gang, and they convinced all of Felix's guys to betray him. So, now, the biggest drug cartel in Mexico is under Benjamin and Max's control. A few days later, the cops catch wind of the cartel's shakeup in Mexico, with Benjamin in charge now. Garcia mentions that 50,000 illegal immigrants from Mexico smuggled 5 tons of heroin in the past year. That's a big deal. Meanwhile, Jack and Billy are patrolling the town, and Jack spots 2 teenagers robbing an old man. He goes after them, catches one, and when the kid tries to bribe Jack with an offer to join a big drug gang, Jack ain't having it. He shoots the teenager dead when the kid tries to make a run for it. This incident hits the local news, and Garcia is not too happy with Jack for taking out two teenagers who could have spilled the beans on the drug networks in the city. On the other hand, Benjamin catches wind of the news about those teenagers he sent to bribe Jack getting killed. That piques his curiosity big time, cause he's wondering who Jack really is. See, usually they can find plenty of crooked cops willing to make some quick cash, but Jack doesn't seem like the type. Benjamin's pretty convinced Jack ain't just some random dude, so he's on a mission to dig up everything he can about Jack. Meanwhile, Jack's kicking back at a cafe he's been to before, just taking it easy with a drink. That guy who dissed Jack and got a beat down from him before, he kinda sidles up to Jack and says sorry for the whole thing. Over in another corner, Benjamin and Max are knee-deep in prep work for smuggling a big load of drugs. They're fixing up a bus to sneak it into the US. Max spills the beans, saying they've got 2.8 tons of heroin wrapped up tight in 3 layers of cardboard paper, stashed in a super tough titanium-coated iron box. They reckon no detective gadgets or even the best police dogs on the planet will sniff out that stuff. Now, on the big day of the smuggling operation, Max and Benjamin aren't taking any chances. They dressed up their bus like it's carrying church folks and nuns. They even put on priest outfits to blend in. At the border checkpoint, the officers are checking everyone's passports, one by one. But when one of the passengers slips up and reveals a tattoo on his finger, the jig is up. The officer calls for backup, but Max and Benjamin aren't waiting around. They pull out all the weapons they've stashed on the bus and open fire on the border officers. Benjamin orders their guys to step on the gas, and they make a run for it, leaving the chaos behind. Jack and Billy hear about the bus situation on the radio, and they're not far from the scene, so they jump in their car and race after the bus. Meanwhile, Benjamin, who's now driving the bus, quickly realizes they're in a tight spot because there are loads of cops blocking the road ahead. Just then, Jack, from inside his car, starts firing shots at the bus. Feeling trapped, Benjamin decides to turn the bus around and head back to Mexico. Jack and Billy, not realizing they've crossed the border, keep on chasing the bus. Some Mexican cops join the chase, and it all ends up at a market. Jack, Billy, and a bunch of US cops are right on Benjamin and his crew's heels. Jack takes down some of Benjamin's men, and then he spots Max and Benjamin talking to the Mexican police chief, Ernesto. Jack realizes things are getting dicey, so he bolts, but he gets caught by other Mexican cops. Long story short, Jack gets arrested by the Mexican police for crossing the border without permission. Turns out, Max and Benjamin teamed up with Ernesto and his crew to make smuggling for Benjamin's drug cartel a piece of cake. The next day, Jack's forced to fight in some kind of betting match. Lucky for him, he's pretty skilled in the ring and beats all his opponents. Back in the US, the Texas police are giving military funerals for the border officers who died in the showdown with the drug cartels. Garcia is still worried about Billy and Jack vanishing during that arrest operation. Then she gets a call from Billy, asking to meet up somewhere. On the flip side of things, Benjamin and his crew have Jack all tied up, hanging him upside down over some electrified water. They're planning to put the screws to Jack to get some answers and figure out who he really is. But just when things look their worst, Billy shows up with Garcia, waving a gun around. Surprise, surprise. Billy's actually one of the crooked US cops working with Benjamin. She's the one who's been spilling the beans on police investigations, letting the drug cartel folks always stay one step ahead. Benjamin starts grilling Jack, wanting to know his true identity and who he's working for. He's convinced Jack ain't your run-of-the-mill cop because his skills and methods are way different. Jack, with no other option, comes clean. He admits he's a special forces agent sent on a mission to nab all the big shots in the Mexican drug cartel network. Jack's not just looking to catch him, he wants to wipe them all out. He tells Benjamin that 3 months back, his own 16-year-old daughter died from an overdose of heroin smuggled from Mexico. He swore at her grave that he'd take down every last drug dealer in Mexico. Hearing all this, Benjamin tells Billy to throw Jack and Garcia in the same cell. Benjamin's got plans to use them as bargaining chips to get his drugs back from the Texas police. So, Garcia and Jack reach this warehouse. Garcia takes down one of Benjamin's guys, and she shoots Billy dead. After breaking free from their binds, Garcia gets in touch with her higher-ups, asking for backup at Casa del Mar, where they're held captive. Jack tells Garcia to find a car in the base while he distracts the guards. At the same time, Ernesto calls up Benjamin with some bad news. The Texas police are en route. Benjamin's face goes white, and he tells Max to get things packed up pronto. Garcia, who's found a car, gets a nasty surprise when Benjamin's men, who just woke up, catch her off guard. Their car ends up crashing. Now the Texas police roll up to Benjamin's base and start firing away at his whole crew, who are getting ready to stash the drugs. The big shootout between the cops and Benjamin's gang kicks off once more. In the midst of all the chaos, Jack crosses paths with Max and they throw down. Jack nearly gets taken out by a grenade bomb Max tosses, but he digs deep and comes back to finish the job. Every move Jack makes, he's haunted by the memory of his daughter, because his whole mission is all about revenge. Jack faces off with Benjamin one last time. Benjamin had aimed his gun at Jack, but he backs off when he sees Jack's got a bomb vest strapped to himself. Jack triggers a remote bomb and hurls it at Benjamin. Benjamin gets blown to bits, and Jack's mission to take down the head honcho of Mexico's biggest drug cartel is finally a success. The movie ends with a scene where Jack and Garcia are sitting together, having survived all the madness. The next day, when they're back at the hotel, Garcia asks Jack what's the deal with that white rabbit he always carries around. Jack reveals that the rabbit was his late daughter's pet, the one who passed away. So the moral of the story is never judge a person by their rabbit. They might just have a killer backstory.